Hi there, USBGF friends. Phil Simborg, USBGF Teaching Pro with a cube decision problem. Red's on roll. The score is 1-1 in a match to 5, which, as you'll see, I've set it 4 away in my Extreme Gammon. You can reset Extreme Gammon, by the way, by right-clicking and show absolute score, which is 1-5, or 4 away. I prefer to use away score because that's the score that matters. That's the one that's going to make me use my cube decisions and for all of my checker play decisions as well. Notice that red is on roll. You can tell because the dice are red, which I don't like. Future versions of Extreme Gammon will have arrows to make it easier to tell who's on roll. And red is holding a 2 cube. So the question is, red's on roll, should red recube? And if red recube, should blue take or drop? I will be quiet just a couple of minutes and let you make your decision. Okay, hopefully by now you've made a decision, and if you did, that was actually pretty quick. So I didn't give you a lot of time, because in these videos I'm not that concerned. This is not a test where you win prizes. I'm not as concerned with whether or not you get the right play or not as whether or not I teach you something. And my goal is not to teach you what's right to do in this position. My goal is to make sure you understand the right process, the right idea, the right approach for cubing in any given situation. And of course they may be very different approaches that you might take at different kinds of scores, but the first step in any cube decision is to know the take point and price of gammons. So what is the take point for blue here on the Recube? If you have studied your take points and your match equities, you'll know what it is right away. If you haven't studied it, one thing you might do is estimate it. And how do you figure out what your take point is? But if you don't know, I guess that'll show you why it's so critical to learn these things. Because whether or not you take or drop is going to be based on what your take point is. Well, if you take the cube goes to 4 and it becomes double match point. Whoever wins the game wins the match. So your take point in any situation that's the case is the same as your match equity or your winning chances if you were to drop the cube. So if you were to drop the cube, if blue dropped the cube here, he'd be losing 2 away, 4 away. If you know your match equity tables, you'll know what your odds of winning are at 2 away, 4 away. But let's say you don't know that either, and you haven't studied that. Take a guess. What do you think, if you're playing somebody of equal skill, what do you think their edge is? How often are they going to win if they need 2 points to win the match and you need 4 points to win the match? Are they going to win 75% of the time, do you think? Or 67% of the time, 2/3 of the time, or 60% of the time? Certainly they're favored. They're going to win more than 50. Well, if you guessed that they're going to win about 67% of the time, and that's the match equity, you're right. And if you weren't sure, you can either look up the table or you can go to Analyze, Cube Information, and you can see that the take point is 33%. That's your odds of winning if you drop this cube. That's your odds of winning the match. So certainly you should take this cube if you can win more than 33% of the time. Now, why am I asking about the take first? Because in every cube situation, after I come up with the take points, the first thing I do is I use Woolsey's Law every single time. Woolsey's Law says that if you're thinking about doubling, put yourself in your opponent's shoes and ask yourself if you would take or drop. So the first thing I want to know is the taker going to take this cube? Is blue going to take this cube? And the answer is, I don't know. Will he win more than 33% of the time or not? If I think he's going to win more than 33% of the time, then I'm taking. If not, I'm going to drop. What about gammons? You need to know the gammon value. What's the gammon value with the cube on 4? Well, it's 0. There's no gammons. Gammons don't matter. When the cube's on 4 and each player needs 4 points to win the match, I don't have to worry about that. So the only criteria for whether or not I would take the cube if I were blue is if I think I can win it 1/3 of the time or not. Well, how do you know what percentage of the time you can win this game? Reference positions help, experience help, and you make your best guess. I cannot give you a formula that tells you This is not like a race. If it was a pure race, I could tell you using the Keith count or Kleiman or EPC or Trice. There's all these different formulas and methods where I can give you a fairly close estimate of wins and losses. But when you have contact like this, I'm not sure whether blue is going to be able to come up and get out. I'm not sure whether red will stay trapped. You just have to make your best guess. Well, if you guessed very, very well here, you would guess that this is a take, and you'd be guessing right. Blue does win this game more than 33% of the time. Now, when you're using Woolsey's law, if you said to yourself, I'm not sure that this is a take and I'm not sure whether it's a drop, then for sure it's a double. So that makes the doubling decision easy. And if you said to yourself that I didn't think blue could win this game 33% of the time, again, you would double. That makes the doubling decision easy. The only time you wouldn't double when you're sure your opponent is dropping is if you are too good to double, if you think you're going to win so many gammons that it's worth it. And by the way, at this score, you could easily be in a position where the taker has a take, but you shouldn't double because you're too good to double. And even though you're too good to double because you might win too many gammons if things go well, he might still have his take because he could win the game more than 33% of the time. But it might be wrong to give the cube because you wipe out gammons. Well, here, that's not the case. Here, you're not too good to double. There's just not that many gammons to where you can play forward. Plus, you can lose the game enough times to where you're taking a risk playing forward. Now the question is, if you come to the conclusion, the proper conclusion, that blue should take this cube, how do you know whether to double or not? Well, the major criteria, the main reason I'm ever going to double, if I know my opponent is taking, is if I have too many market losers. If by rolling on my next roll, after I roll and he rolls, he's going to be dropping so often that I'm sorry I didn't give the cube. How often is too often? Well, at normal match scores, which is 7 away and higher, where the take point's 21.5% and gammon prices are 0.5, too many market losers is pretty well defined by O'Hagan's law of market losers, which says about 25% of the time. If I lose my market about a fourth of the time, I'm probably right to cube. And it depends on how much you lose your market by and what the board looks like. If you don't lose your market, how bad shape you could be in the other way. But you take all those factors into account, that's a pretty good clue. At 4 away, when gammons have no value, 25% is a little bit nebulous. The real question is, am I going to lose my market very often? And how sad am I going to be that I gave the cube? How often will I be very sad I gave the cube? Well, in this case, one good reason to double is, number one, you might get some drops. Not everybody's going to think they have more than 33%. Some opponents might not even know that the number is 33%, and they might drop this like a rock. This certainly does look a little scary for blue, having 3 checkers behind a 5 prime. But when I look at market losers and I think about what loses my market, I know that if I can roll a 6 and get out, I'm in pretty good shape. He hasn't got a lot of checkers to attack me with. I have pretty good timing here, and that puts me in pretty good shape. I'm not too afraid of most of his rolls, except for double 2s and double 1s, numbers that make this point. A 2-1 would be a great roll for him, or just about any 2 that makes this point, gets him to the edge of the prime. Because as long as he's not at the edge of the prime, I'm in pretty good shape in this position. So my estimation is it would be a double, because if I just roll normally and he just rolls normally, I'm in really great shape, and he might even be dropping. He might be under that 33% afterwards. So first of all, let me show you the answer. Again, I'm more concerned with the process than you're getting the right answer in this position. By the way, double 6 is an awfully good roll for red. Double 5 is pretty good too, isn't it? But how's just coming out with a 6? How about normal rolls? So it turns out it's a huge take. He needs 33%. He's got 38%. Again, the gammons don't matter. It's a small double because you do have enough market losers. Now, how can you test yourself? How can you find out what the good rolls are, what the bad rolls are, what are the market losers, and what kind of shape you would be in? One thing you can do is go to Analyze Dice Distribution. I always hit 3-ply or 4-ply to get a better feel for it. And we can see right off the bat, I mentioned double 6 is a great roll. Double 5 is pretty good. There's a lot of rolls that are even better than double 5. 5-2, 6-4, 6-2. Why are those such good rolls? Well, 5-2 is pretty obvious. You're pointing at them. 6-4, you're just going to hit loose with the 6-4. If he doesn't hit you back, you're in pretty good shape. Even if he hits you back, you've still got some timing and a pretty good game. But look at the main thing that I want to look at here. Most of these rolls in green are up there pretty high. I'm up over 70%. And even the rolls that are in red, I'm still favored in this game. I'm over 50%. So if I roll badly, I'm still favored to win the game, and I don't mind being favored at double match point. And if I roll well, I'm a pretty big favorite. I can even go to the next step and take a look at how I would be after I roll and after looking at his rolls by clicking on Expanded, clicking on Details, and I can look at his rolls and my rolls and go all the way down with all the rolls and see how they're played. I can really examine this position using dice distribution. But this is the kind of position that I ask my students to play out if they're way off on this one. I have students that don't think that blue can win anywhere near 33%. So they don't understand how this game plays out. And the first thing I do is say to yourself, how should blue play? How should red play his next rolls? How does blue play his next rolls? Take a look at just the next roll. How would red play a 4-3 here? How would you play a 4-3? I got my play. Okay, I bring 2 down. A lot of people might just bring 1 in and leave the ace shot. If I'm going to leave a shot, why don't I leave a shot where it really helps me if he doesn't hit it? If I leave this shot here, he can hit me with 1s or a 6-4. Here he can only hit me with 6s. And if he doesn't hit me, I've got a very strong position here. If he doesn't hit this, I've still got a lot of work to do. So these are the kinds of things you're going to do to really examine and analyze the position. I hope this helps you. I hope you found this interesting. And keep your comments coming. I love your critiques. I've had some, I won't call it negative, I've had some critiques saying, Phil, it would be better if you did this, this, or this, and I've tried to listen to those as well. So I want your suggestions. Email them to me at psimborg@sbcglobal.net, or you can make a comment right on the Facebook page. Join the USBGF if you're not already a member and support my work and efforts to bring backgammon to more people through these videos, and also the entire USBGF college program and education program and the things we're doing to expand backgammon throughout the world, working with other federations. So we need your support. Please join. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.